Go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask that the city manager call roll.
Jim Minaj.
Present via Skype.
Jeff Elsong.
Here.
Jeff Hawes.
Here.
Betty Martinez.
Here.
Justin Smith.
Here.
All right, appreciate everybody being here this evening in the audience, those watching at home, and Councilmember Minaj joining us from the road, taking time to do that. We're going to open tonight's meeting like we do all of our meetings with a moment of silent prayer, and would ask at this time that we would be sure to think of Officer Kuntz, who was fatally shot over the weekend with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department, and understand there's actually a vigil going on at this very moment for him. And I know that our Bel Aire officers have been in contact and are actually going to be helping out the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department during the time of the service, additional patrol areas and all of that. So appreciate the cooperation on that, but would ask that you especially remember his family as we enter into a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Now please rise and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everybody to our September 18th council meeting of your Bel Aire City Council. Looks like we have a very full agenda this evening, but a lot of things are related together. A number of petitions and a number of resolutions, which are always a good thing to be working on. That means growth. We will take a look at a listing agreement. Also going to look at a contract for engineering services. And lastly, certainly not least, we're going to look at a police car replacement, and all of that is in your packet. First thing to come before council this evening is what we'd ask is we need to add item N to the agenda, which is there, which I guess we need an official motion
Mr.
since
Mayor.
it came out after Thursday, correct?
I motion to add the addition of item N to the agenda.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sign, okay. Next is the consent agenda, which consists simply of the minutes of our September 4th, 2018 City Council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next is appropriations ordinance 2018-18 in the amount of $335,478.32.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve appropriations ordinance 18-18.
Second.
First and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. City requested appearances, don't have any formally listed. Under citizens' concerns, I'd like to recognize Mark Shelley to come to the podium. He told me last night that he had a couple things he wanted to bring to our attention. So welcome, Mr. Shelley.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor and the council. It's nice to know all of y'all up there. First of all, it's not a concern. Just like to bring something to your attention. As many of you know, I'm an avid bike rider. Used to be an old runner till hurt my back. I should show you my shirt, you know. So for a little bit of humor, I dressed the part tonight. I wanted to ask a couple questions. And some statements. We all know we got some pretty good bike trails in the greater Sedgwick County area. A lot of them are within the city limits, but we have one down here right by Home Depot. And I ride that one a lot. No problem riding the trail. Getting to the trail can be very hazardous. And I was wondering, when you guys are widening Woodlawn, if you're going to put a bike lane in. If not, I'd like to ask you to consider that. And maybe anytime you widen any street or do a significant improvement on it, you put a bike lane in like you did on 37th Street between Oliver and Woodlawn. I use it. It makes a difference. So I don't know where you are on the Woodlawn planning, but I can tell you getting to the trail is the time I wish I had an escort with some lights, because it's pretty hazardous. Unfortunately, it's more hazardous south of 37th, but if we can at least eliminate the hazard up here, it would be better. North of 37th with a bike lane. That's topic number one. I don't know where you're at on that, but they are a nice addition. Obviously, a trail's better, but if you don't have a trail, people are aware of them. I can tell by riding when they're aware of them. So appreciate that. The other the other thing I'd like to talk about is I picked up the latest bike map of the Greater Wichita Area bike map, and I can leave this with you, Ty, or whoever, but in here they have on there where there are bike lanes. It's noted on here. And 37th Street between Oliver and Woodlawn is not noted on there, so I bring that to your attention. Not sure who to call, but that'd be something. I'll just leave this with you. But they're notated on other streets, and I've checked them out, and so I know that they're notated correctly because I've ridden them. But we might as well take credit for it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we do something on Woodlawn, or maybe when we do 45th Street someday, we can think of bike lanes. I just would ask you to do that. Here's the real reason why I came tonight is, some of you guys know, because some of you have seen me, I ride early in the morning, a lot of times 5 o'clock, because that's the time. And a lot of times I ride 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and that's all I got. And in the winter, I ride with lights and a lot of reflection material and things like that. I used to run, as some of y'all know, and when I used to run, I didn't wear anything for years. And then I started wearing this belt, because it's a reflective belt that you wear around your waist. It doesn't seem to bother you whether it's winter or summer. They're adjustable, this and that. We in Europe, we wear them on the flight line. In America, we wear something different, but we wear these things. And before I wore this belt, I got to tell you a story. I didn't realize how I wasn't seen till when I put it on, and I was seen, because you can see it. And I always ran into traffic. You could see a car coming, and you could see him go like this, go past you, and go like that. Or he would, as he's coming, he put on his turn signal. So believe it or not, this little, 2.5 inch wide, 3 inch wide thing is very visible, and it gets the point across, and it's not hot. You can ride, put a parka on, you can ride in a t-shirt, you can do whatever. And so I tell you that to say that since Labor Day on 45th Street between Rock and the cemetery, about 3 weeks ago and about 2 weeks ago, I about hit somebody, and I was riding a bike. Once was in the morning and once was at night. And the only reason I saw him is because he saw me first and ran into the shoulder. So it's one thing to not be seen by a car, but a slow-moving bike. And I said, that's twice in this month, and I said that's not really acceptable. Well, he saw me because I was lit up. I got headlights, taillights, helmet light. I wear, as my grandkids call it, Bob the Builder shirt, reflective strips sewn in my shirt. And when it's cold in the winter, I put this over top of whatever I'm wearing, so I can be seen. It's not a guarantee, but it's better than nothing. And remember my experiences as a runner. And you can tell today when a car sees you. Now, because I'm riding with the traffic, I don't notice it as much as when I was running into the traffic, like you walk into the traffic. I'm lit up, I'm reflective. I don't know that if we have any ordinances or any rules up here that that pedestrians have to be lit up. I'm not sure that's what I'm saying. I'll get to my point. I do know in some cities in Arkansas, a bell is required on your bike. Just like some cities, a license is required. But what I'd like to offer or think about is there any way that we can do something as a city to obtain, I'm going to say go for these, because these could be, somebody might not want to wear this in the summer. Some people really sweat, but these don't bother you in the all year round. Maybe we could find some. Maybe we could find a local organization. I don't even want to suggest them, but some civic group, some public group that would fund 100 of these, because I don't think we would need 100. Give me a couple, put a bunch downstairs, give some to the officers. The officers see me in the morning because they wave, they honk. I know they see me. So I'm sure they'll see the runners because they're the same people I see. You know, they're on the opposite sides or we pass each other. So, you know, maybe we could find a way to fund. I don't think you need to fund 5,000 of them. I think you need to fund a few because there's not that many people running. The other thing I thought about is maybe we could ask the county for some help, and maybe we could get a project for the county. We could be the experiment for the county and say, look, we'd like to figure out how to make bikers, runners, pedestrians, walkers safer, and we'd like to, you know, build a plan. We'd ask you for some seed money to buy whatever you think of these, and, you know, I'll work with you. I'll work with the chief. I'll work with anybody. You know, you can bounce your ideas off me. I just think that I think we could do something, and I really wasn't too concerned about it because I was protected. But when I almost hit somebody twice, 2 people on a bike, and I was on a trike, my trike. You've seen my trike, but it's a bike. That's weird. That didn't feel right, like cars, you know, coming fast and seeing you. So I did talk to the chief the other day. Told him, he said he's going to run some PSAs. Really, that's all I miss is, and I'm not pushing these, but I'd like to see if we could do something, and maybe we could lead the fleet. Well, that's an aircraft term. Maybe we could lead the county in a project. You know, maybe United Way would fund it. Maybe there's somebody that would fund it. And I brought this. If you want to look at it, you can see it. I don't wear it because I have other stuff on. You know, I actually have reflective stripes on my tubes, on the tires of my tubes, so when it goes by you see a circle and stuff. So I'm here for questions, and really that's all I had tonight.
Appreciate you bringing these concerns to us, and certainly it's something I think we could look into, and I appreciate the chief doing some social media pushes on that, and that's something I know Councilmember Benaj brought up once too, just to make sure that it's always a good reminder that you need to be seen. So appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and maybe it's something we could have our Parks and Recreation or someone
There you go.
look into that. And then as far as your other 2 concerns, the being on the bike map, I know that one was printed a couple of years ago. So definitely with the next run, we'll want to make sure that our Bel Aire Street is in there. And as far as Woodlawn, I do believe that that's part of the plan, but you know, right now we're still at the very, very beginning, getting an engineering firm even to tell us how big it should be or what it should be, and certainly that'll play into that.
If there's a time, now's the time.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for being here. Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, we're going to move into reports, and I'll start with Councilmember Hawes.
I have no report, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Benaj.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did attend the Sedgwick County Area Cities meeting on Saturday, September 8th. Councilmember Smith was there as well. There was discussion about the future of SCAC as they call themselves sometimes, and how much it overlaps with maybe REAP, the Regional Economic Area Planning. And so it clearly does, but it's attended by more elected officials than REAP is. So due to time and day of meeting time, so REAP is more typically attended by staff, although there is some overlap in both cases. So they're formed a smaller study group. I think Councilman Councilmember Smith is on that group, and the purpose of that is to see about going forward and how they want to do things. But anyway, it was an interesting discussion that they're trying to make sure they find their footing and what their future will look like. So it was a good meeting. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martini?
No report, Mayor.
Councilmember Smith?
Mr. Mayor, so as Mr. Benaj mentioned, I also attended the Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting, and yeah, the purpose of that was really to try and define and brainstorm what the vision of that group is going to be going forward. The big thing that stood out to me, I think the gap that I heard several times from the participants there was in having a group that could interface and be in good communication with the Sedgwick County government. So getting that connection between local city governments and the Sedgwick County government in the area seemed to be a gap that everyone thought that group could fill. But as Councilmember Benaj mentioned, we're forming a smaller subcommittee, and I'm going to be a part of that to try and drive towards a more defined vision for that group going forward. And so I'll have more to report on that in the future. I also did want to mention that I received several emails from concerned citizens about the Terra Verde land auction, and I want to thank the citizens that emailed me about that for expressing their concern. And I want to make people aware that we, the council, as part of the land bank, did already meet to discuss that issue. We met on that last Tuesday prior to our scheduled workshop. We ended up in a 3-3 split vote on that decision, deciding in favor to vote on that voting to bid at the auction for the land. It really was a complicated issue, and some of those specific circumstances could make it really easy to talk yourself into wanting the city to acquire that land. But at the end of the day, I want to make those people that contacted me aware that I did vote against that because I didn't think it was appropriate for the city to take any action that would further its position as a land developer, regardless of those potential future profits. So I know that the communication on that maybe wasn't as good or transparent as it could have been, since it wasn't at an actual city council meeting. It was at a land bank meeting. So I wanted to bring that up and just make everyone aware of what had happened there. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Elsoff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to express my sympathies for the deputy that lost his life, Deputy Coons, and our hearts are heavy with thoughts of his loss and his family. And I know all the law enforcement community around our area. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of you, and especially with the family. So I just wanted to mention that, Mr. Mayor, and I have no formal report.
Thank you. I have no formal report tonight either. Just want to remind folks, I know we've already seen some campaign signs up for a couple of specific candidates who I guess laws don't apply there, but for the rest of the candidates out there running for public office, I believe it's this Saturday will be the 45-day that the state statute tells us that, you know, we don't care what your city law says for those 45 days. You can do that. So it seems like we did it the last time. We got a lot of calls saying, why are there campaign signs on public right-of-way? Why are they knocking on my door when we say no solicitation? And all of that is because the state law overrides our law at that time. So I would just ask that be receptive of that. If you see campaign signs out, that's why they're allowed to do that. And we just hope that they would pick them up as soon as the election is over with as well. So that will move on to City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make the council and the public aware of a Federal Communication Commission regulation that's being considered. They're considering ending local control of the management of small wireless cell infrastructure and the agreements associated with those. So that means that currently cities wanting to work with cell phone companies to deploy wireless infrastructure within their city and make lease agreements that both parties can benefit from would now be under the control of the federal regulation. Currently, cell companies wanting to deploy wireless infrastructure contact local municipalities directly for site franchise agreements. For example, Bel Aire has an agreement with Sprint, which allows Sprint to lease space on one of the water towers within the city of Bel Aire. The cell tower agreement generates about $8,000 in revenue for taxpayers annually. Sprint has contacted us about another opportunity to consider negotiating a similar second agreement at the same location. Basically, as things are, the city gets to negotiate favorable locations, fees, screening requirements, and specific tower location. With the FCC legislation, the FCC would limit reoccurring fees to approximately $270 per site per year, and would prevent local governments from recovering most costs associated with the maintenance and contract negotiations in those agreements. And it would also not exempt existing agreements. So our existing agreement and any agreement we make before this regulation is passed would have to be renegotiated at the federal, in compliance with the federal requirements. This preemption to home rule has gotten the attention of the National League of Cities, and they are opposing this regulation on behalf of cities. And the vote on that regulation is September 26th, and I'll keep you posted. They ask for letters from municipal leaders, and so as that time approaches, I will keep you posted. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Kelly, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
This is a proposed regulation. Has it been published?
Yes, I can send you a copy.
Do you have the regulation number, the publication number that we can respond to?
I do not have it with me here now. I have the, but I do have the language in my office. I can make it available for the public and also send you a copy.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to cover a couple items for the public. I know council's aware of this, but I wanted to share this with the public. Of course, the swimming pool closed about a month ago, but 2018 was the banner year for the pool. We had the most daily attendance since the pool's opened, and it was up 1,000 the daily attendances from 2017, and the revenue is also the most that it's ever made since it was open, and it was actually up $5,000 from last year. So I know council saw a copy of the report, but I think it's important for citizens to know that the pool is doing very well, and it's continues to rise every year with revenues and participation. Another thing I wanted to mention, which council received in their packet, was the project status report for Woodlawn. I know we get a lot of interest in when things are happening, and Mr. Shelley even mentioned about, as we're planning that, bike trails and bike paths and things like that. And people are going to see traffic along there related to MKEC vehicles that may be stopping and going, or other people that they have contracted with. But basically what they've been doing is the field surveys of the project and utility locates are still in progress. So that's where I was saying there may be people out there stopping and going, doing survey stuff or survey work or utility locates. Traffic engineer consultants, which is TEC, will be on site. We're actually on site through the 15th to install video equipment and begin on-site data collection for the traffic study. And this should last about a week. So if citizens saw people out there putting things up related to video equipment, that's what they're doing. So that was part of the engineering was for this traffic engineering consultants to actually video and not just count numbers. They wanted to see how many people were obviously moving up and down, but also where they were turning, how they turned, and things like that. So that's what they're doing by the video. And then the last thing they're working on is they're reviewing the Chisholm Creek Trib 7 and basic hydraulic information along Trib 7, which really kind of old Bel Aire, that drains all of old Bel Aire, and it goes into the pond that's down there across from Heartland Animal. And they worked with Heartland Animal to do a FEMA study for floodplain, because some of that is in the floodplain. And so that's part of what they're doing, is pulling that information up as they're looking and modeling how drainage is going to affect Woodlawn as it's expanded. So those are some things that are happening. Council approved the engineering agreement with MKEC a month or so ago, and so people are going to see things like that happening, and that will probably take over the next year. Different things will be happening, some public input sessions and things like that. So, but anyway, and then the last two things I wanted to mention is October 6th, so it's a couple, 3 weeks away, but that's the fall curbside cleanup. So people have, if you've been cleaning your garage or got things you want to get rid of, that will happen on October 6th, which is a Saturday. Needs to be out by 7 a.m. And I'll remind everybody at the next council meeting, but just to be thinking of that. And then the last brush site will be open on October 13th. So then we close it through the winter time. So, and again, I'll remind everybody and watch social media. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That will move into ordinances, resolutions, and final actions. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the affordable senior housing project that we talked about a couple of meetings ago. Actually, is that just our last meeting? I think so with that one. But as you guys know, Homestead Affordable Housing they're planning to construct 60 affordable units there for senior housing on the southeast corner of 53rd and Oliver. Council did approve a resolution of support at our September 4th meeting, and the letter of intent identifies the requirements of each party in issuing an IRB for financing. So the LOI calls out a 100% tax abatement for the first 5 years to allow for the nonprofit to be established. It also requires that Homestead Affordable Housing to construct at least 60 units valued at $10 million and employ at least 1.5 individuals. So we did put that in there, but I want to see if there are any questions of the city manager on this. Kind of formality.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In some of the previous cases where we've had these discussions, there's been an economic impact study that I think Wichita State has done for us. Where in the process will that come for this project? Or will it come into play here?
Actually, yes, we're working there, completing the information. There's a questionnaire they have to complete. They're working on that. We'll send that in to WSU to have those numbers back.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple of other thoughts to share here. I didn't support the resolution last time, and I won't be supporting the resolution tonight, and just want to explain why that is. Back in February and March of this year, this council reviewed and approved a master growth plan for our city, and this master plan calls out the need to target a no growth rate for institutional land usage. In all three of our preferred growth scenarios, the target institutional land rate stays at 7%. In February, Jerry Jones shared with us that as a percentage of our currently developed land, we're at a 14% institutional land use rate. The reason that we have that plan is to maintain a city that is economically feasible going into the future. We have many great nonprofits in Bel Aire that add a lot to our community, and I don't want to undervalue that. But I think it's important, however, to strive for balanced land use to ensure the financial stability in the city's future. I don't think it's our job as a city council to pick what specific businesses and institutions move into the city of Bel Aire. However, I also don't think it's appropriate for the city to make concessions to actively encourage growth of institutional land use, especially growth which directly contradicts the master plan that we've just adopted. Issuing bonds, tax abatements, and letters of support is an active encouragement of this growth. We are being asked to issue bonds and tax abatements for this project to move forward. will be asked to rezone the land from commercial to multifamily residential. This reduces the space for the commercial growth we've all talked about and greatly desire to make Bel Aire a well-rounded community. It's already been stated that we'll also be asked to provide water at a discounted cost to the facility. What are the benefits to the taxpayers for these concessions? The benefit that I see to this project is having the affordable senior housing in our community. However, there's no guarantee that I've seen that this project will allocate or prioritize any of these units specifically for the current residents of Bel Aire. And so as of tonight, I can't support this.
Any questions or comments? Well, I mean, we passed it at the last meeting, so it's going to be something, this is kind of the next step with that for them to move forward. So to that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I motion to approve letter of intent to issue IRBs and provide other incentives for an affordable senior housing project with Homestead Affordable Housing LLC and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have a first and second. Are there any other questions or comments? Call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Okay, item B is where we get into a bunch of resolutions. This is an IRB. The IRB process requires a resolution determining the advisability of issuing an IRB for the senior affordable housing development. This resolution does not require the city to issue the IRB if the project does not move forward. So there is some guarantee and safety nets in there. It's simply the first step along with a public hearing which will be held at our first meeting in October. I see Mr. Cowan with Gilmore and Bell is here. If we have any questions about the resolution of intent here.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. So we have 8 resolutions before us regarding this section of properties, and I was just curious why it's broken up the way it is into 8, and why aren't we doing it as one?
Is that the next topic on the agenda? Which I can answer, but I can wait a minute as well. It's up to you.
Did I skip? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry, they all look the same.
I was going to say.
D3K, we're going to go to.
I retract my question. I'm sorry. I was looking ahead.
Not a problem, not a problem. But Mr. Cowan is up here to answer any questions if we have any. This is again on item B, the resolution before us for the IRB.
I wanted to add.
This IRB is for, just to clarify, this IRB is for the Homestead Affordable Housing Project.
Senior.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was a question earlier about the cost-benefit analysis, and the vast majority of the time, if not nearly all of the time, when the city has had an IRB intent resolution before it, it follows the public hearing, and the cost-benefit analysis has to be available at the public hearing. And we're not proceeding in that manner this time. The Homestead housing folks felt very strongly about trying to get this resolution of intent in place first, and so you have it. One of the key things that you can't approve yet, and that's the purpose of the hearing and the cost benefit analysis, is the property tax abatement, and that was referenced earlier. So what's anticipated is you'll have this resolution of intent, and it says it's our intent. There are lots of conditions that remain. One of the conditions is to have that hearing, have the cost benefit analysis, and that will be scheduled for the next meeting. And if after the hearing it's the will of this body to consider and approve the property tax abatement that's been described, then there will be an amendment to this resolution to add that component. So this is a little different than what you've done in the past, and it's sort of split into 2 parts.
Mr. Mayor? So can you clarify how is the consideration of a letter of intent to issue the IRBs that we just voted on different from the resolution that is item B?
It is a little bit of belt and suspenders. And it was referenced earlier by the mayor that the resolution really is intended to meet statutory requirements, and the letter sort of flows out of that, and that's maybe the less formal expression of the governing body, and that's what gets sent to, in this case, the LLC. So they are intended to be in tandem and similar. Certainly don't want any item in the letter of intent that's not approved in the resolution of intent.
And to follow up on that, is there a disadvantage to proceeding with this prior to having the economic impact study like we would normally do?
Typically not. Here, and I'm assuming you're aware of it, it has been important to the developer to move this as quickly as possible, and you know, the support resolution or support action that you voted on last time, the developer would have liked to have had that be the resolution of intent, and we've explained it can't happen that fast. We still have to have the hearing. So no disadvantage to this body, certainly. I think the developer would say, well, it's a bit of a disadvantage because I want to rely on this resolution and take it and start doing some things. So that's the background and the rationale.
Appreciate the explanation, and there are no one-size-fits-all when it comes to these things, as we've learned.
No, not at all.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution of intent?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve a resolution of the governing body of the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, determining the advisability of issuing taxable industrial revenue bonds for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, and equipping of the commercial facility to be located in the city, and authorize execution of the relative documents, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Got first and second. Any other questions or comments on item B? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Item C, we're looking at petitions for public improvements in the villas at Prestwick. Anytime a new subdivision is constructed, there's always public improvements that are installed, and the cost of these then are spread to the benefiting lots in the subdivision. We know those as specials. Petitions are accepted which state that the developer or the lot owners, that's what they're requesting, that the improvements with that on these petitions, and so they pay for them. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that via the special assessments, like I said. So that's what we're talking about here tonight. This again is just petitions, accepting the petitions that'll be spread out as specials.
Mr. Mayor, I have a few questions about this.
Yes.
First of all, I want to echo Mr. Elsoff's question about combining all these resolutions. Is that possible, or do we have to think each of them separately?
Unfortunately, each phase and improvement requires its own resolution.
Okay, thank you. So when I look at the total of these resolutions, it's about $2 million, $100,000 shy of $2 million. And last time, I think at the last meeting, we talked about the agreement with the developer that they would do a 35% bond for the specials. So I estimate that to be about $700,000. Has that bond been created yet, or is that something to happen in the future?
Yes, we've already received the bonds.
Okay.
We require that when they give us the petitions, that they also submit the bonds.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I see there's also a resolution later on for MEK services for the cost. And so my question is, are the cost of the MEK services rolled into these estimates for the drainage and sewer and water, et cetera?
Yes. Yes, so they are included in those costs. I'm not sure, I was looking to see if it was broken out somewhere. But yeah, it is, if you notice, well, for example, I just pulled up the water distribution. If you look on the page, it's got the the dollar amounts to them. There's a 35% engineering, administration, et cetera fee. So that's what covers engineering, bond expenses, interest, those types of things.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to see an additional cost. I thought that was the case, but I wanted to confirm that.
Yep.
Thank you for the clarification.
And we had the earlier question on the eight resolutions. Much of that's driven by the fact that there were 8 petitions. And so each petition described a different phase of drainage. So phase 1, phase 2, split to cover phases of the development. And each phase affects 13 lots. And so that's the reason that you could, I suppose, say, well, if they're not moving forward with phase 2 now, why are we considering phase 2? It sounds like we're going to move forward with phase 1. And that's a legitimate question. Historically, it's been our advice as bond counsel that if you have the developer, the 100% owner, signing the petition now, to go ahead and accept it, and then adopt the resolution. You have 7 days to accept the petition and begin consideration of the resolution. Then you can, once the resolutions are adopted, they're published and then they're recorded. And the recording is key because then anybody that's dealing any of that in any of that property will have notice that they're subject to special assessment. So it could be done differently, but our preference is if you get a petition and you can adopt a resolution and you have the developer committed, that is a 100% owner, and you can get it recorded, that there's an advantage to that. And everybody's on notice what the plan is, and if somebody is interested in buying phase 2 lots, they're going to have notice based on that recording that they're subject to these special assessments. So I know it's a lot of documents, but that's sort of the idea behind it. Thank you.
Appreciate the explanation on that. And I will entertain a motion on item C. Again, we're talking about petitions for water, sanitary sewer, paving, and drainage for the villas at Prestwick.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I motion to accept the petitions for water, phase 1 and 2, sanitary sewer, phase 1 and 2, paving, phase 1 and 2, and drainage, phase 1 and 2 for the villas at Prestwick.
Second.
At first and second, any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Same sign. All right, here we get to our 8 resolutions, bang, 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 here, D through K that we've talked about. Like we've talked about here, it does require its own resolution to that, and I do appreciate all the explanation on that. We just accepted the petitions for phase 1 and 2, or like we talked about for drainage, sewer, and paving and water there in the villas at Prestwick. But now, so step 2, for the projects to be funded, resolutions determining the advisability of such internal improvements are required. So this is kind of the formality now of going through each one of those individually, which is what we'll do. And so I'm going to ask our city attorney the burning question. We have to read each.
Yes.
We can't just make a motion for D through K. Okay. Thought I'd ask for you guys.
Recorded.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, drainage improvements, phase 1, villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes. Okay. Who wants to do item E?
Mr. Mayor? A motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, drainage improvements, phase 2, villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
We have first and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You want
Mayor.
that?
Motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect to thereto, authorizing providing for the making of improvements, according to such findings, street improvements, phase 1, villas at Preston, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On to you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, street improvements, phase 2 villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Debbie, you want H?
You guys are doing good.
Mr. Mayor, I motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, sanitary sewer improvements, phase 1, villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Item I.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, sanitary sewer improvements, phase 2, villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor.
Yes.
Make a motion, resolution determine the advisability of making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect to thereto, and authorize and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, water distribution improvements, phase 1, villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve a resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Bel Aire, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, water distribution improvements, phase 2, villas at Prestwick, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. All right, passes. Okay, we got through those.
I feel like I should apologize.
Appreciate you being here. It's always good to see you. Okay, we're going to turn corners here a little bit. On item L, talking about a residential marketing agreement with Bannister Real Estate. We had the fortune of hearing a presentation from them at our workshop that we had last week, and had a really good discussion with them, and were able to hear some of their ideas and concepts that they want to put forth. They've been marketing Central Park for the last year, and like I said, we just received their report identifying their accomplishments and their plans for next year. Consensus at the workshop was to allow Bannister to continue marketing Central Park as well as certain Elk Creek lots. I just want to see if there are any questions for our staff or...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just had one question. In looking at paragraph 7 on advertising and merchandising, it talks about how the marketing company is going to do the marketing for the Central Park edition, but I don't see any reference to any marketing or listing on the MLS of the Elk Creek properties, and I wondered if it would be all right to add a clarification in there that they would be doing both. Other places in the agreement and the documents reference Elk Creek as well, but nothing in the advertising and merchandising section.
Good catch.
Yep.
Let's make a motion.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the residential developer marketing and exclusive listing agreement with Bannister Real Estate for certain lots in Central Park and Elk Creek additions, with additions, or as amended, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question that I would like just to minor clarification, but this agreement talks about who are the preferred builders, and do we have a list of who those preferred builders are? I assume we do.
No, right now we're operating under open builder program, and basically then there's a process to go through that we would do preferred builders, but we are not at that place yet. So really we're just allowing any builders that would be approved by the marketing company in Bel Aire to build in there, and then as part of that they become an approved builder.
Is this the same language that was in last year's contract?
Yes.
Okay, so do you anticipate that there will become a preferred builders list, or that will continue to operate under open builder?
What our hope is that if they continue to gain more interest, right now there's 2 builders I think over there, and they're both approved. But the goal is to get more builders interested, and at some point, if we had a number of builders, then we would just add them all to the approved builder list. And you know, sometimes they do, if you get to the point where you have too many builders wanting to build, not enough lots, or it's oversaturated, then you might not allow some people, but we're not at that point yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we do have first and second. For any other questions or comments before I call for the vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Next is engineering services contract with MKEC. Done a lot of talks today about the villas of Prestwick, and that developer has utilized MKEC for design and engineering of these developments. The developer would like to utilize them again for design of phase 1, phase 2 of the villas there at Prestwick. The cost of engineering is included in the petitions, and these are also spread as special assessments, so no cost to the city on that. And MKEC has done other developments in Bel Aire and has, I think they've been a pretty good partner. I don't see Jason Gish here tonight, but I'm sure you're with MKEC?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have someone here from MKEC. If anybody has any questions for that, like I said, we've done a lot of work with them. And it's the developer that, like I said, is going to be paying for that on the specials, and they requested them.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the engineering services contract with MKEC for the villas at Prestwick and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Next is replacement of a police car. Something we haven't actually done that in a while for that. And unfortunately, in a 2015 Dodge Charger, we had an engine that blew. To replace that engine, we're looking at about $10,000 just to replace the engine. This is a car that has, over 95,000 miles on it. Chief Atterbury is here, so talk about that. But looking at to see if the best use of our money is to purchase a new Ford Escape. And again, we'll certainly Explorer. I'm sorry.
Escape's really
Looked like an Escape to me. Oh, Escape's a little one, isn't it? Sorry, Explorer. It looked like.
We've got some really big officers.
So, record, dude.
That's okay. They're hefty guys. So I talked with the city manager earlier today. I guesstimated about 95,000. It's 98,400. I got an exact mile on it. So it was due to be replaced this year. The question that, of course, the manager asked is, how did the engine blow? And there was a fuel injector that went bad in the number 8 cylinder, which flooded the cylinder with gas. So it warped the piston, bent the rod, bent other things within the engine, and ruined the block. So to replace that engine, the block would be, with parts and labor, about $10,000. So when we trade off cars, we normally get about $6,000 for them, and we've already had an offer on this one without an engine at $3,500. So we're considering that as a positive option right now to, offset the burden of having to buy another vehicle. To give you an idea, in 2014, when we bought that Charger, it was about almost $26,000. Now, we get those on a state contract, so it's considerably less than walking onto a lot and buying the vehicle, because the state's negotiated special pricing for government entities. In 2017, we bought an Explorer, and it was just a little over $28,000. And then we had one replaced last year because it was wrecked at 53rd and Rock Road, but the insurance company took care of all that, and I couldn't get any good information on it as far as cost because they just took care of everything. So what we're requesting is they're very hard to find right now in straight black, which is what we have now. We really like the Explorers. They're good all-wheel drive vehicles that perform really well for us. But we've located one in Guthrie, Oklahoma, and they have one set to arrive on the 2nd of November, and we could collect it, we could get it at that point. But they also put a note on here that it is currently available but subject to sale prior to receipt of your purchase order. So we wanted to get it on the agenda tonight instead of waiting. I do have a concern that the East Coast may need to replace some patrol vehicles, and they may start reaching out to car dealerships trying to find vehicles to replace those that have been damaged in the floods. And we do need a vehicle also. So I wanted to get a jump on that, and I don't want somebody to, if you approve it, to buy it out from underneath us.
So, Mr. Chief, just a question. I assume from what you said that there's been no competitive bidding on this because of the lack of supply of these types of vehicles.
You're correct. But what we have done is located one that is just slightly more than we would pay on the state contract, and that vehicle is accessible to us if we send them a purchase order. And normally, we don't go out for a competitive bid. We find a dealership that has the vehicles on the state contract, and we identify where that vehicle is located, then we just go pick it up.
I see. Is there any way this could be put under the state contract? Like, you get one of those companies that can do the state contract, pick this up and sell it to us?
No, I don't think so, because they would have to pay Oklahoma their going rate, and that's the $30,200. Because the Oklahoma doesn't have to honor the Kansas
Right.
state contract.
I was in Guthrie last week, but okay.
We should have had you pick it up.
Should have picked it up then, right?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. So the $30,000 price for the car that's in front of us, does that include all of the lights and sirens and
No.
the configuration that'll have to go into the car?
That is just the equipment, or that's just the vehicle. In the equipment replacement fund, we've identified money through Ted Henry that is to be used for situations like this. And we were set to buy a vehicle anyhow. It's just that this is not the one we wanted to replace first.
So how does that work? Do we move the current equipment from the current car to the new one, or do we buy new lights, new sirens? And I guess what's the cost involved in that?
We've already stripped out the Charger, and we've taken everything that we can take out we can use on another vehicle. So we've taken out siren box, we've taken out the radio, the camera system, just everything that we can scavenge off of that to put into the new vehicle. And something like the prisoner transport system, that's built for a Charger, so it won't fit in an Explorer. So we'll have to get one of those and some lights. But we've accounted for that in the total amount that's been allotted for the purchase of a patrol car.
So do you know what that total amount is?
I don't. It's going to be somewhere around, I believe, $45,000 by the time it's all said and done.
Okay.
So 15,000 additional cost to the 30,000 purchase price.
I'm sorry, say again?
Is that 15,000 additional cost to the 30,000 purchase price?
Yes.
Can you talk just a little bit about how we choose the SUV versus the versus the Charger versus other alternatives for the police cars?
Yeah, we, and I just pulled up an email here, when we looked at the Chargers, we talked to the Highway Patrol, the maintenance facility at the Highway Patrol, and we went back to them when we considered buying the Explorers. And we talked to them about the use of both, and we have different uses. The Highway Patrol doesn't normally drive through cornfields, and we sometimes do that. So the Chargers aren't very good for that, but the Explorers are. What we found with the Chargers is that the maintenance cost is considerably higher than the Ford Explorers. A full brake job for a Charger is around $1,400 because they have special sized rotors and pads and such, where the Explorer is about $500. A huge difference in price. So that, and we've used the Explorers now, and we've had very little problems with them, except for getting crashed into. And the officers like them. They're roomy enough. They perform well, and they're all-wheel drive. So that's a benefit in bad weather and on the dirt roads.
One last question. It sounds to me like this is something that we need to do, but just so that I'm clear, if we weren't to do this, what would be the impact to the department to not have this vehicle?
We would go without. We would have to drive vehicles, what we call hot seating, from one officer to the next. We'll run the miles up faster on the vehicles we have, which will require their replacement sooner. That's one big issue. The other thing is, we were told if we didn't get this car or one up in Iowa, we would have to wait into 2019, around July, August of 2019 before we could get one.
I just want to point out too, I just did a quick cars.com, and a 2019 Dodge Charger that with the Scat Pack talked about is $43,000.
Yeah.
So it's $13,000 more too.
Yeah. Most of the agencies around our area have gone to the Explorer. Some still use the Chargers. We still have some Chargers, and we like the way they drive and the way they handle. But these are also a good alternative to those in that we can do more with them. We can drive through fields, and the repair costs are less.
And we feel like overall the hot seating methodology for using police cars results in a higher total cost of ownership for the car.
Yeah, it's gonna increase maintenance costs because we'll have to get them serviced more often. What we're trying to do is create a float so that we try to keep the mileage to the year of the vehicle. Like this vehicle is a 2015. It's got 100,000 miles on it. Your vehicle gets, 10, 15,000 miles a year. We put considerably more miles on a vehicle every year. So to hot seat the vehicles and drive them constantly 24 hours a day, it's going to push us into a situation where we're going to have to replace them sooner rather than later. And we would rather keep that balance going with the mileage on the cars and keep to a schedule so that Ted in finance can keep his replacement program going in a logical manner.
Is there a gas mileage penalty for the larger vehicle in the Explorer?
Not that I know of.
Ford gets better gas mileage.
Yeah, the Ford gets better gas mileage than the Charger, unless they're on the highway, and then they're about the same.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I I motion to approve the purchase of a 2019 Ford Police Interceptor SUV from John Vance Auto Group in the amount of $30,200.68 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
And we have first and a bunch of seconds.
Mr. Mayor, I did have one question on the motion specifically. It looks like this quote was yesterday, and these are kind of hot commodities. There's this one in Guthrie, and you mentioned another one in Iowa. Do we need to make the motion more broad such that if this one's unavailable tomorrow, the one in Iowa could be purchased? Is that an option that we have?
You can.
I don't know if we should consider doing that.
I think that's a great idea. We can consider that.
Mr. Mayor, I motion to amend the motion, or since we already seconded, we have to,
So we've got a first and a second on the floor.
You can make a substitute.
okay, so I'd like to make a substitute motion to allow for the option to purchase a different vehicle from, I guess the one that was mentioned that might be available in the state of Iowa.
Does that work? Jackie's looking at us.
Because the original motion had an amount, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So what will you do with that part of the motion? Are you going to cap it at that same amount, or should you ask for a range to?
Was it a very similar price, the one in Iowa, Chief?
I don't have that price, but I think it was just a little bit more because they were adding cost to transport it to Kansas. But I can find that information for you.
So if we were to say maybe like up to 31,000, then that is a negotiation.
More than that.
Yeah, maybe like 35.
Over
I
that
was
much?
thinking 35. I'll, okay.
We'll try to get it from Guthrie.
Please.
Is that an additional substitution?
No.
You're still on your substitute.
I'm still on my substitution, okay. To substitute the value of $35,000 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Okay, we have first and second on a motion to go up to $35,000 on a 2019 Ford Police Interceptor SUV. First choice is going to be from John Vance Auto Group in Guthrie. Second choice will be the one that you've identified in Iowa, not to exceed that price.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
are both of these vehicles, they're going to transport them to us?
If we get the one in Guthrie, we're just going to drive down, get it and drive it back and save any transport costs, because that's just a short drive down into Oklahoma to grab it. The one in Iowa's,
Guthrie's not a short drive.
We're going to say Councilmember Benaj.
Okay.
it's relative.
But the one in Iowa would be transported to us?
Yeah, I'll find out how much that's going to be, and if it's a huge amount, it might be worth our while to go up and get it, but I would rather not.
If it's $4,000, that may be.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be in that
Iowa.
$200 to $400 range, I think, is usual transport fee. So,
Not from Iowa.
Okay. Do you have a first and second on the floor? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. And I would say it's not 9 o'clock yet. Cardi dealerships are usually open till 9 if you wanted to go make a phone call right now to Oklahoma. Just saying.
thank you. I'll go type up that purchase order right now.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a question there. We authorized the mayor to sign. Did we need to authorize the city manager to sign so that could be signed tomorrow?
Or do I need to call you out of your office?
Actually, I've got a copy of this, and we can have the mayor sign tonight.
Okay.
And then if we don't get that, then we'll just hunt the mayor down.
No. You've done it before. All right. I have no need for an executive session this evening.
Mr. Mayor, motion
I
to
have a
adjourn.
question.
Okay, hang tight.
Never mind.
No, hang tight. We do have a first and second on the floor to adjourn. However, do you have a question first?
Yeah, I read or saw someplace the new truck that we bought for maintenance that It was supposed to be delivered in August, and I read someplace recently or saw that we're not now gonna get it till November. What happened to that deal?
No, it's supposed to be here next week.
Originally, it wasn't gonna be here till December, was it?
No, it's gonna be here in August. That's why we spent
Yeah, I
that
think it
money.
was August, and then I'm not sure what the holdup was on it, but I did, Ann told me that it's gonna be here next week.
Okay.
Actually, it's in Wichita, and they're getting it set up, doing whatever stuff that they do to a new vehicle. So it is here, we just haven't picked it up yet.
And we sold the pumpkin.
Yes, $8,000.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Even
Even I wouldn't buy that. Okay, well, as long as it's here, because
Yes.
I thought, well, maybe somebody should put a push on them, because I really recall August. I could be wrong.
I think you're right. I think it was August.
We do have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Elsoff, and that is seconded by Councilmember Smith. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are out of here at 8:10.